Hello and welcome. My name is Dustin, and in this video we're going to be talking all about the soprano saxophone. More specifically, we're going to be talking about two soprano saxophones, the straight and the curved. We'll be looking at both of these instruments, similarities and differences wise, and at the very end I'll be playing them side by side so you can hear if there's any difference between them. All right, let's get started. First off, we have the straight soprano saxophone. Now, this is by far the most popular soprano saxophone out there. When you think about the soprano, you think of the straight soprano. Kenny G plays this very soprano right here, the straight soprano. Now, there are a few different variations of the straight soprano. This one is a double neck version. And this neck on the top here can come off just like any other saxophone. And this is the straight neck. But it also comes with a slightly curved neck in the case. So this is called a dual neck straight soprano. And those two necks allow you to have a slightly different sound. One produces a slightly darker sound, the other produces a slightly brighter sound. Some would say one is better for classical, while the other is better for more of a jazz setting. It has a slight difference, but it's not that big of a difference in my opinion. The slightly curved neck that you get in the case provides the angle of the soprano to be more down towards the floor, and it's a little bit more comfortable to play that way. There are also soprano saxophones in the straight variety that don't have double necks on them. They just have one neck here on the top that's straight and is permanently connected to the rest of the horn, and is permanently attached to the instrument up here. So it doesn't have a detachable neck to it. So that, along with the double neck soprano, are the most popular straight sopranos. They also have one that has a slightly tipped bell on the end here, slightly curved up like this, and then it has a slightly curved neck on the top here too. So it's mostly straight, but it has those differences in the bell and in the neck. And this is a very uncommon soprano, but it's called oftentimes a saxello. And it's called the saxello, but it's still considered the soprano saxophone. So those are the three main types of straight soprano that you'll see, with this one being the most common. Next, we have the curved soprano. Now, I know what you're thinking when you see this thing. You're thinking, that's not a real saxophone. That's not a real instrument. That's a toy. He's messing with us. Well, I can assure you that this is a very serious instrument. And it's actually the exact same thing as what I just showed you with the straight soprano. It's exactly the same length, believe it or not. It's just curved like the other saxophones are. Now, with this very compact shape and this small size, it's real easy to travel with this thing. You can fit it in your backpack, you can fit it in a carry-on, so it's easier to travel with a curved soprano. It has a lot of other benefits to it over the straight, which we will touch on later in this video. But overall, this curved soprano is not as popular as the straight soprano, which you've just seen. But I like it a lot, and I'll explain why in a few moments. This is a size difference between these two instruments. Notice how the curved is a lot smaller compared to the straight. But if I were to unravel the curved one, it'd be the exact same size as the straight soprano. So they are actually the same thing. It's just one is curved and one is straight. Now the first thing we're going to look at when comparing these two instruments, besides the size difference, is how comfortable are they to play? Well, there's a big difference here, in my opinion, between the straight and the curved and how comfortable they are to play. Starting with the straight soprano, when you play the straight soprano, whether you have a straight neck or a curved neck on here, when you're playing the straight soprano, you're holding it out at a roughly 45 degree angle from your body like this. Kind of similar to the clarinet or the oboe. And when you're holding it out here like this, your right thumb, this one right here, is under a lot of pressure. When I'm holding this instrument out at an angle like this, my right thumb is under a lot of pressure and it's holding most of the weight of the instrument here. If you were to play this instrument for a very long period of time in a gig, like an hour or more, that right thumb would be under a lot of pain because it's holding up most of the weight of the instrument. You don't have a neck strap. Now, I do have a neck strap hook here, so I can put a neck strap here. But when I do put a neck strap, it pinches this thumb on my left because it's so straight. So almost all, or I'd say the vast majority of straight soprano players out there don't even use a neck strap. Next we get to the curved soprano. Now, the curved soprano is a lot different than the straight in terms of how comfortable it is to play. In my opinion, it's a lot more comfortable. First of all, when I play the curved soprano, I can hold it on the neck strap here, and the whole weight of the instrument can be supported on that neck strap. So I'm feeling almost no pressure on my right thumb, unlike with the straight soprano. So I can hold it out, and I can play without having a lot of pressure on my right thumb. So if I'm playing soprano for a long period of time, the curved is really great for that because I can play for a long period of time without worrying about my thumb. And like other saxophones, you can just support the weight with your neck strap. And the neck strap doesn't pinch your right thumb either. So it's at a pretty comfortable position when you're out here like this. Next, let's talk about price a little bit. Now, if you're considering buying a soprano saxophone, but you're just not sure where to look, and you're not sure which one to get, here are a few guidelines in terms of price. Generally speaking, if you have a soprano that's straight, like this, with a double neck on it, provided that it's the same brand and same model as the curved soprano that you're also looking at, this one is going to be a little bit more. Usually about $200 to $500 more than the curved variant. And that's because it has two necks to it. Now, if you have the same straight soprano, but it's just one piece where the neck is attached to the rest of the body, then the curved soprano is more money. It's not astronomical, but it is a little bit more money because there's no extra brass here that has to be accounted for with the double neck. Also, the curved soprano is a little more complicated to make. The keys are really close together, like on the straight, but you have to curve it, which is not as common, and that's harder to do. So it's a little bit more expensive for a curved soprano if you're comparing it to the straight variant that doesn't have a detachable neck on it. Last but not least, let's look at the sound of these two instruments. From first glance, with the straight soprano, you might think that it sounds like a clarinet or an oboe because it just goes straight through the entire instrument, just like those other two instruments, the clarinet and the oboe. It's very similar to those instruments because it just goes straight through. It doesn't go through any curves before it gets out the bell. So that's one thing to consider. The way I describe a straight soprano sound is it's a little brighter and the notes are a little more present. The sound of the curved soprano is a lot different in my opinion. To some people, there might not be a difference, and soon you will hear both of them together. You'll be able to tell for yourself. To me, the curved soprano sounds darker. It sounds warmer, and I think that's because the air has to go through these curves here, just like a normal saxophone. So in essence, this kind of sounds like a higher pitched alto or a tenor. It sounds like a saxophone, but it's higher pitched. Whereas the straight soprano doesn't sound like a saxophone per se. It sounds more like an oboe when you're using it for classical music. So the curved soprano sounds dark and warm, in my opinion. And that's what I love about the curved soprano. And that's one of the main reasons I love this version of soprano more than the straight, because of that darker sound. But enough of me telling you what the sound is like. Let's have you determine for yourself which one sounds better. I'm going to be playing both of these and we'll see what you think. Well, I hope you enjoyed that comparison between the straight and the curved soprano saxophone. So, which one did you like after listening to both of them? Did your opinion change over what you thought before you listened? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.